Meanwhile, President Trump's historic impeachment trial is expected to come to an end Wednesday. It's likely senators will acquit the president on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress.
Today, House managers and the president's legal team will give their closing arguments after a months-long investigation into the president's actions with Ukraine. Weijia Jiang has more.
I mean, my family suffered because of all of this.
In a traditional pre-Super Bowl presidential interview, President Trump said impeachment has taken a toll and doubted whether he can work with Democrats going forward.
I see the hatred. I see the level. They don't care about fairness. They don't care about lying. So I'm not sure that they can do it, to be honest.
Mr. Trump has always insisted he did nothing wrong when he asked Ukraine's president to investigate political rival Joe Biden. Now, several Republicans are publicly disagreeing.
I think it was wrong. Inappropriate was the way I'd say improper, crossing the line.
But not wrong enough, they say, to lose his job.
Does it come to the point of removing a president from office? I don't believe this does.
On Face the Nation, House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff said the explosive claims by John Bolton mean impeachment is not the end.
The truth will come out will continue to come out.
In leaks of his unpublished manuscript, Bolton has not only said that President Trump linked the aid to Ukraine with the Biden investigations, but he also claims White House counsel Pat Cipollone was aware. On Friday, just hours after the Senate voted against new witnesses and documents, the Justice Department revealed there are 24 redacted emails related to the president's decision-making on freezing military aid to Ukraine.
That shows you the lengths to which the president's lawyers are going to cover this up.
And Weijia joins us now from the White House. So, Weijia, you mentioned in your piece there are some Republican senators that are publicly agreeing. They are saying the president's actions were inappropriate. They don't warrant impeachment. I think you will probably hear more of some of those senators in the days ahead as we start to hear from senators in the days, closing arguments of the impeachment trial. Have you heard from the White House how the president is reacting to the fact that there will be some who will say the president crossed the line?
Well, so far, the president has not reacted. In fact, he had that huge Super Bowl interview yesterday, and he talked about all sorts of things, including impeachment. And it would have been an opportunity for him to sort of express his frustration over those Republicans who, by the way, he promised if they did ultimately vote against him that there would be a price to pay. At least that was part of the messaging behind the scenes. But I don't think that he'll draw attention to the fact that these members of his own party are saying that he didn't do anything wrong. I will say, though, that his own attorney sort of made this very argument that first, the articles of impeachment fail on their face because they don't name a underlying crime, but also they argued even if everything were true, even if what the Democrats presented were true, it would be okay because the president was only acting to root out corruption and to try to make sure everyone was paying their fair share by contributing to Ukraine. So it's not exactly a departure from what his own legal defense is saying. The only thing is assigning blame, right? And now these Republicans are saying he probably shouldn't have done what he did. But in the end, that will not change their belief that he should stay right here at the White House.
Is the president and the White House still sticking by it was a perfect call and he did nothing wrong?
Absolutely. And I don't think that will ever change because, that's what they said from the very beginning. That's what they said throughout the entire impeachment process and the trial. So it would really not look that great if all of a sudden the president were to say, you know what I did was wrong. I mean, he's not somebody who would do that likely anyway. I can't in this moment remember a specific time where he has admitted wrongdoing. So I think that we should anticipate that message to carry through the entire campaign season, which, by the way, officially kicks off today, not only for all those Democrats in Iowa, but for President Trump. So, he's trying to move forward. At the same time, the campaign has said they get fundraising dollars and they get support as a result of impeachment.
So, Weijia, the president will likely be acquitted on Wednesday with the backing of nearly the entire Republican Party in the Senate. What have you heard as to how the White House was able to garner this kind of overwhelming support throughout the impeachment process? We were just talking about it earlier, that the president spent a lot of political capital in talking to these senators about backing him, even though, as Senator Lamar Alexander said this weekend, that he believed that the president's actions were inappropriate, that the president may have crossed the line. But now you're asking these senators to go and sort of, however you see it, this is going to be part of their legacy, no matter what happens.
Right, and I think that's why we see them having it both ways. On the one hand, they're able to say, look, I'm publicly condemning the president for doing something because I'm saying out here that what he did was inappropriate. On the other hand, I'm not voting, and it's not going to be on my record to have more witnesses and certainly not to remove the president from office. And I think that's because the White House did a really good job, clearly, of launching this intense campaign behind the scenes to make their case. The White House says President Trump didn't personally reach out to any senators, but then Reince Priebus, who was very close to President Trump and remains an advisor, said right here on CBS News that he wouldn't be surprised if the president actually did do some personal outreach as part of that campaign to spread the message that, if you do in fact vote for witnesses, it's going to drag on for weeks and weeks, and you're not going to be able to accomplish anything else during this critical election year. They also issued a warning that it would change sort of the tool that is the use of executive privilege for the president, and there would have to be two sets of rules. So basically, they were peddling these arguments on Capitol Hill through Mitch McConnell's office, who spoke to those senators frequently, daily, about what they should do next. And clearly it worked for the president, who also, by the way, I mentioned a little earlier, said that, this would be a momentous vote that he would not forget. So basically saying, if you vote against me, there will be a price to pay later.
Let me ask you this before we let you go, Weijia. Is there going to be a price to pay in Missouri? The president tweeting out a congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs, saying congratulations to the great state of Kansas. Was in Kansas. I know former Senator Claire McCaskill, who is from Missouri, had some very choice words on Twitter. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs are from Missouri. What are you hearing from the White House?
Well, we didn't have to hear anything because we saw the response very quickly. That tweet only lived for a couple minutes, and then somebody, likely his social media team, realized what had happened. But of course, that is the beauty of screenshots, and that tweet exists whether you delete it or not. And I'm assuming someone's going to ask the president about it. We have a lot of other things to ask, but that was a big error, right? Because it had just wrapped up this big game, and he's spelled out very clearly that the great state of Kansas and the USA was very proud. So maybe he'll joke about it. Maybe he'll say, like he always does, oh, I get one word wrong and then I get killed for it. Well, this wasn't just one word. It was a pretty substantial mistake.
All right. Weijia Jiang for us at the White House. As always, Weijia, we thank you.
Thank you.
So for more on this, we want to bring in Joseph Moreno. He is a former Justice Department National Security prosecutor. Thanks for joining us. So on Friday, the Senate rejected a motion to consider bringing additional witnesses and evidence into the trial. Why wait to hold the final vote until Wednesday then?
Hey, Anne-Marie. Hi, Vladimir. Good morning to you both. So it was an interesting choice because I have no doubt that many, if not the vast majority of Republicans in the Senate and President Trump really wanted this trial over late Friday night or early Saturday morning. And I take as truth the reporting that Mitch McConnell just did not have the votes, that within his caucus, within his 53 Republicans, he did not have a majority ready to say, we are going to bring this to finalization tonight. We want those extra days to air our positions, to go to the Senate floor, to kind of take the weekend, go home, think about things, really pull ourselves together. What's interesting, though, is the weekend went super quick with the Super Bowl. Today is consumed with Iowa caucuses and then closing arguments this afternoon. It's basically you have tomorrow and Wednesday morning for these Republicans and any Democrats to take their 10 minutes each to basically air their positions. So it seemed like a long time on Friday to say we're going to make 5 more days until we get to finalization. But the reality is that's not a lot of time between now and the 50 or so hours between now and the time the actual vote takes place.
Joseph, I note that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and some other Democrats have said that a trial without witnesses is not valid, that the president cannot be acquitted without one. It sounds like a political argument. Is it a legal one?
Well, Vlad, the position that a lot of Republicans seem to be coalescing around, which is basically the Lamar Alexander position you just aired, which is that I accept what the prosecutors allege, but I don't think that what the president did was removable. That's more akin to a motion to dismiss than an acquittal. And so I think the fair response to that is, look, you could have dismissed this from the get-go, and yet you chose to have a trial, but then you only had half a trial because you didn't call new witnesses, or basically all the witnesses that are out there with relevant information. So as usual, both sides have a good point here, and it really will be up to the American people and history to judge, was this a legit trial? Should there have been called witnesses? What more will come out in the coming days and weeks and months? And ultimately, how did Congress and the president handle this entire situation? Because right now, it seems like really a mess that no one is fully happy with.
So speaking of additional information, it feels like, every other day we're getting sort of additional information on this. And the Justice Department revealed 24 redacted emails related to the president's decision-making on withholding military aid to Ukraine. At this point, they've already voted about new evidence not being included in the impeachment trial. So I presume that these emails will not have an impact on the current impeachment trial. But should the Senate vote to acquit the president, as we get more and more information, do the Democrats have any other recourse?
Well, Anne-Marie, they can always impeach President Trump again. They can continue the investigation. They can call John Bolton. They can subpoena his manuscript. They can go to court and fight against the assertion of executive privilege against these emails and whatever else exists out there, and certainly more does exist. So it'll really be more of a political strategic decision than a legal one as to how much more time Democrats want to spend on this. I have to think that many of their supporters and many Americans feel like this was not a fair trial and that we want the truth to get out, and that means continuing to go after the evidence. Others might say, you know what, we're ready to turn the page on this. We have caucuses and primaries starting, we have election beginning, and we really don't want to continue on with this. And so that'll be something that Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat caucus, the Democrat candidates will really have to kind of wrap their heads around and say, do we want to continue down this road, or have we basically, have we squeezed all we can out of this issue? Have we brought it to light to the American people, and should we now let it go?
All right, Joseph, thank you so much.
Thanks to you both.